I found the camera concealed inside my smoke detector while changing the battery. It was a professional installation, hardwired, with a microscopic lens angled directly at my bedroom hallway. As a 62-year-old man living entirely alone on a sprawling, isolated ranch just outside Casper, Wyoming, I had to ask myself a chilling question. Why would anyone need to watch me sleep? To uncover the truth, I did the hardest thing imaginable for a former federal agent. I left the camera exactly where I found it, told absolutely no one, and started paying close attention. 3 days later, my son asked me a specific question he couldn't possibly have known unless he had been secretly watching me inside the privacy of my home. That was the moment everything I thought I knew about my family shattered. My name is Howard Palmer. Before I explain the nightmare that followed, you must understand who I am. I spent 28 years as a financial crimes agent for the FBI, tracking identity theft rings and unraveling complex money laundering operations. Because of my career, I truly believed I knew exactly what betrayal looked like. I was completely wrong. The Saturday morning battery check was a strict household ritual my late wife, Catherine, had initiated 25 years ago. Catherine had been gone for 4 years now, taken by a brutal battle with cancer, but I stubbornly maintained the routine. It felt like keeping a small, tangible piece of her alive. Standing on my stepladder, carefully unscrewing the plastic smoke detector cover, I noticed the unit's weight was off, entirely too heavy for just a standard 9-volt battery and some basic wires. Frowning, I pulled the entire unit down from the ceiling mount and looked inside the casing. There it was, a tiny cylindrical black camera no bigger than the top joint of my thumb, nestled perfectly beside the battery compartment. A microscopic lens was pointed through a meticulously drilled hole in the plastic housing. I stood there on that ladder for a full minute, not breathing, the silence of the empty ranch pressing in on my ears. This wasn't some cheap, disposable gadget. This was professional-grade, expensive surveillance equipment requiring specialized technical knowledge to install. Someone had been watching me in my own home, the sanctuary Catherine and I had built together in 1989. Placing the compromised detector in front of me like a critical piece of evidence, I forced myself to compartmentalize the rising panic and think logically. Who had access to the inside of my home? My nearest neighbor, Earl Thompson, was 71 and could barely operate a flip phone. The furnace technician had remained in my direct line of sight the entire time. And then there was my son, Travis. He had been visiting every Sunday since moving back from Denver, insisting he worried about me living alone. Travis was 41 now, married to an ambitious corporate attorney named Nicole. They had been struggling with a vague real estate development project in Denver that wasn't panning out. Over the last few months, Travis had been in every single room of this house, multiple times, completely unsupervised. The trained investigator in my brain ruthlessly clicked through recent, unsettling details. Travis casually asking about my daily medications, wanting to know the specific name of my primary care doctor, and probing about what would eventually happen to the ranch when I was gone. He had smiled when I assured him my will handled everything, but a dark, calculating shadow had crossed his face just for a fraction of a second. The retired FBI agent in me knew the math simply didn't add up. I decided not to confront him. I would investigate. I would follow the money. The very next morning, I bypassed my usual spots and went straight to the public library. I knew better than to use my home network. If Travis was watching me, it was highly probable he had installed keystroke loggers to monitor my digital footprint as well. Sitting at a scratched library terminal, surrounded by high school students doing homework, I logged into my primary bank account. When the screen loaded, my breath hitched in my throat. The balance was catastrophically wrong. I should have had over $380,000 in my high-yield savings account, funds Catherine and I had put away for our retirement and for passing down to our grandson, Lucas. Instead, I was staring at a balance of $255,000. Nearly $125,000 had vanished over the past 5 months. My hands trembling slightly, I clicked through the detailed transaction history. Wire transfer to Palmer Holdings, LLC. The amounts ranged from $12,000 to $28,000 at a time. Increments strategically small enough not to trigger the bank's automatic fraud alerts. Searching the company name yielded absolutely nothing. It was a ghost company, existing only to obfuscate the movement of stolen capital. Someone had been systematically stealing from me. I thought about the hidden camera that was likely sitting in my home office, focused dead center on the top drawer where I kept my bank book and a handwritten list of passwords. They had mercilessly exploited Catherine's insistence that I write everything down. My own son was stealing from me, but I needed ironclad proof that would hold up under the brutal scrutiny of federal court. I wasn't just going to confront him like a disappointed parent. I was going to prosecute him. That afternoon, I made a secure call from a payphone to an old colleague, Carl Winters, who had been the county sheriff for 15 years. We met at a rundown diner on the outskirts of town. I laid it all out for him: the hidden cameras, the unauthorized offshore transfers, and my grim suspicions regarding Travis and Nicole. Carl listened in absolute silence, taking meticulous notes, before letting out a heavy breath. "Howard, I believe every single word you're telling me," Carl said. "But without concrete digital forensics connecting Travis directly to those wire transfers, we need to tread very carefully. A defense attorney could technically argue it was remote identity theft by an anonymous hacker." He gave me the contact information for Diane Fletcher, a Cheyenne private investigator who specialized exclusively in elder financial abuse cases. I met Diane at a quiet coffee shop in Laramie. She possessed a direct, no-nonsense demeanor and had worked as a senior forensic investigator for 15 years. I recounted the entire nightmare. "This matches a psychological and criminal pattern I've seen countless times," she said softly. "Adult children who feel a toxic sense of entitlement to their parents' assets. They usually begin with covert surveillance to learn your routines and access sensitive information. Once they have that, they initiate the financial exploitation phase. But the final, most dangerous step is usually establishing total legal control, manipulating you into signing over power of attorney or establishing legal guardianship by having you declared mentally incompetent. Once they manipulate the legal system into granting them that status, they can sell your property, drain your remaining accounts, and lock you away in a care facility. It is all completely, terrifyingly legal if they can manipulate a corrupt or negligent doctor into signing off on it." My blood turned to ice water. Travis had specifically asked me about my doctor just 2 weeks ago. He had probed about my sleep schedule and asked if I ever felt confused or forgetful. It was groundwork. He was methodically building a false narrative that I was losing my cognitive grip, establishing a paper trail that I needed a guardian to manage my affairs. "How do we stop it?" I asked. "First, we gather irrefutable evidence," Diane said. "I can trace the routing numbers on those wire transfers. Second, we document everything about those hidden cameras. But Howard, if Travis is truly the architect behind this, confronting him could be physically dangerous." I told her I wasn't going anywhere. She instructed me to play the role of a confused, deteriorating old man. Over the next 2 agonizing weeks, Diane relentlessly dug through digital financial records while I committed myself to the performance of a lifetime. I intentionally shuffled my feet when I walked around the house. I repeated myself during our phone calls. I asked Travis the exact same mundane questions twice in a row when he came by on Sundays. He ate it up. I could literally see the validation shining in his eyes. On the second Sunday of our operation, Travis arrived precisely at noon with Nicole. "Dad, you look incredibly tired," Travis said, kissing my cheek with a Judas smile. "Are you remembering to take your blood pressure pills? The ones Dr. Evans prescribed last month?" We hadn't gone to any appointment together. No doctor had prescribed me anything. He was gaslighting me, desperately trying to construct a reality where my mind was fracturing. "Maybe you're right," I sighed, rubbing my forehead in feigned distress. "I get so confused sometimes lately." His eyes lit up for a fraction of a second with a predatory gleam. After they finally left, I locked the doors and conducted a systematic sweep of the premises. I found the 4th camera that very afternoon. It was brilliantly tucked into the spine of a hollowed-out hardcover book on my bookshelf, its lens pointed directly at my armchair. My own flesh and blood had turned my sanctuary into a panopticon, monitoring my every private moment. That evening, Diane called my burner phone with a major breakthrough. "Palmer Holdings, LLC," she said, her voice crackling with adrenaline. "The primary directors of record are Travis Palmer and Nicole Palmer. The funds were wired from your savings to Palmer Holdings, instantly routed to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands to wash the digital fingerprints, and then funneled back to a numbered holding company here in Wyoming. That specific numbered company recently placed a massive cash bid on your ranch. Someone is aggressively attempting to buy your entire ranch out from under you, and the signature on the seller's authorization line looks practically identical to yours. They had maliciously forged my signature on illicit power of attorney documents, utilizing a lightbox to trace my handwriting from a birthday card I had lovingly signed for my grandson just 3 months ago. "There is one final piece of the puzzle," Diane warned softly. I pulled the subpoenaed phone records for Travis and Nicole. Over the past 3 weeks, they have been in constant communication with the admissions director at a lockdown memory care facility in Cheyenne. We're talking 12 separate, lengthy phone calls. They were actively planning to have me involuntarily committed. The very next morning, Diane and I walked into the local field office and sat down with Sheriff Carl Winters and 2 senior investigators from the FBI's Regional White Collar Crime Division. I dumped the contents of my briefcase onto the conference table. certified bank statements, high-resolution photographs of the hidden cameras, the forged property purchase agreement, and the subpoenaed phone records. The federal investigators moved with terrifying speed. By 3 o'clock that afternoon, a federal judge had signed off on the arrest warrants. "We want to hit their residence with a tactical team tomorrow morning," said Agent Phillips. "But Mr. Palmer, we tapped your son's phone this morning. He scheduled an emergency appointment for you for this Thursday morning, a comprehensive cognitive assessment. They're accelerating the timeline." We agreed to execute the raid on Wednesday, before that appointment could ever happen. They sent me back to the ranch with strict instructions to maintain total operational security. When I arrived, Travis was waiting in my kitchen, pacing the linoleum floor like a caged animal. "Dad, where the hell have you been?" he demanded, feigning frantic concern. "I went for a long drive," I mumbled, avoiding his gaze. "Just felt like seeing the countryside." He stepped uncomfortably close. "Dad, there's an excellent doctor down in Cheyenne I'd really like you to go see. Just a routine checkup. Memory gaps, sudden confusion, paranoia. It's the normal aging process." "Thursday, right?" I said quietly. "The appointment. In Cheyenne." Travis blinked, genuinely startled. "How did you know about that?" I smiled at him, the exact same empty, vacant smile I had been feeding to the hidden cameras for weeks. "You must have mentioned it to me earlier. I just remembered." He lingered for 20 agonizing minutes, talking in soothing, patronizing tones about how it was entirely for my own good. When he finally left, I sat perfectly still at my kitchen table and simply waited for the dawn. 45 on Wednesday morning, a tactical convoy tore up the dirt road. A sheriff's department interceptor cruiser, flanked by 2 unmarked black FBI sedans, moved with aggressive speed. I rode with Carl to Casper. The federal raid team, heavily armed and wearing tactical gear, stacked up efficiently against the front door of Travis's sprawling, modern home. "FBI! Federal warrant! Open the door!" Moments later, the door swung open. I caught a glimpse of Travis's face illuminated by the morning sun, transitioning rapidly from sleepy confusion to absolute paralyzing terror as he registered the tactical rifles and federal windbreakers. Seconds later, shrill, hysterical screaming erupted from inside the house as female agents placed Nicole in handcuffs. 2 burly federal agents marched Travis out the front door, his hands tightly cuffed behind his back. As they hauled him toward the transport vehicles, his frantic eyes locked onto me standing silently by the cruiser. "Dad!" His voice cracked, high-pitched and desperate. "Tell them it's a mistake. You don't understand what's happening. I was trying to help you. You're not well." I didn't move a muscle. I just stood there, letting the absolute clarity of my gaze communicate that the game was over. As the reality of his total defeat washed over him, the panicked, begging mask melted away entirely. What replaced it was a visceral, ugly sneer of pure, unadulterated hatred. "You stupid, selfish old man," he spat. "That ranch should have been legally mine years ago. You are sitting on $2 million worth of prime real estate doing absolutely nothing with it. I deserved it." "I taught you better than this, son," I said quietly, my voice cutting through his hysteria. Travis let out a bitter, psychotic laugh. "I was done waiting for you to die." The agents shoved him roughly into the back of the armored cruiser, cutting off his vile tantrum. The subsequent federal investigation was exhaustive and devastating, dragging on for 4 grueling months. The prosecution built a case so incredibly dense and irrefutable that there was absolutely zero room for plea negotiations. Travis was found guilty on multiple felony counts and received 42 months in federal prison. Nicole was immediately disbarred and sentenced to 18 months. Their ostentatious house, luxury vehicles, and remaining assets were entirely seized by the government to pay mandatory restitution to my accounts. 6 months later, I received a letter from Travis begging for forgiveness and asking me to visit him. I sent back a single, uncompromising sentence. "The door isn't locked forever, but you are going to have to earn your way back." I have not heard from him since. My grandson Lucas came out to visit the ranch last month. He is a good, solid kid who wants to work as a conservationist for the Forest Service. I told him the absolute truth about his parents and assured him that none of the fallout was his fault. I restructured my legal will so the ranch and the assets would go entirely to him, held securely in an irrevocable trust until he turned 30. Looking back on the nightmare now, sitting in the quiet safety of my home, I realize how terrifyingly close I came to losing absolutely everything. If I hadn't noticed the altered weight of that smoke detector, I would be rotting in a locked memory care ward right now, heavily medicated and completely helpless, staring blankly at a wall while total strangers auctioned off my legacy. If something feels fundamentally wrong within your own family dynamic, trust that feeling. Do not ignore the red flags. Document every interaction, secure your financial information, tell an impartial professional, and demand help. I learned the hardest lesson a father can learn. Love is not an acceptable excuse to tolerate exploitation. Shared blood is not a free pass to commit financial ruin. An advanced age does not make a person helpless unless they actively choose to surrender their autonomy. I am 62 years old, still living independently on my ancestral ranch, still changing the batteries in my smoke detectors every 6 months. Exactly the way Catherine taught me. Sometimes, properly protecting your family requires you to fiercely protect yourself from them.